to the Falling Up Podcast. I'm Kevin Paulin.
And I'm Ben Backus,
Shout outs to Ryan Redcheeks,
the one and only.
producer extraordinaire.
That's it.
Extraordinaire. So, wow, man, where do we begin? Where do we start? Well, the first thing, I was really thinking about how to start. And you know me, I'm all about giving our flowers while you can still breathe them or smell them. Well, both, right? And the last conversation we had on the podcast, we talked about how we met. And from that day, I too didn't realize I was going to have a brother or a lifelong friendship. However, on that day, I knew it was a genuine person I was meeting. I 100% knew like you weren't trying to be anything that you weren't. You know what I mean? I think in certain environments, especially like employment, working, you come in and have like some people put on their 9 to 5 face, and then when they leave, they take it off. Whatever that looks like. I feel like when I met you, I knew who you were that day. And then when I talked to you outside of work, you were the same person before work, after work. And I respect that. I don't care what a person is or how they are, but if they're consistent of who they are, that gets the utmost respect from me. And I really, to this day, man, it didn't matter where we were at. We could have been in the projects in New Haven talking to clients, or we're in Branford eating sushi, but you're the same person, man. So I think the same things you said about me, it's certainly mutual, certainly reciprocated, to have a brother, someone I could lean on, someone I could count on, someone I share and get advice from, and a brother, man. There's really, not too many words in this world to describe that type of bond, man. So I'm so grateful and appreciative and so excited to hear this story and to share with the world, what I've been blessed to have for the last umpteenth years, man. So, Ben Backus, my brother, man. So yeah, man, let's begin, man. So I want to talk about, we have the common interest in sports, right? So let's start there, because I think our audience will see the teams that you like and how that directly correlates to where you're from. So let's start with there, man. Where you from?
Yeah. No, so I again, everything you said is it's mutual, right? And yeah, I appreciate that. And just to touch on the piece with genuine, the only reason I was able to do that is there's not another way for me to really live my life anymore, where so much of my struggles came from not being genuine. But to jump in, I actually grew up in Connecticut, and I think I spent maybe the first 5 years of my life here before moving to Rhode Island.
Okay.
And yeah, there's no Yankee fans in Rhode Island, man. Right? It's not like Connecticut where it's split 50-50. It's all Boston sports up there. So sports were the first thing that gave me meaning and purpose in life. So growing up, and again, going back, I don't have great memories from there. Memories are one of the most untrustworthy thing I think we have, and they often turn into what we want them to be. But I do remember through my parents and people kind of telling me, growing up was pretty hard for me. I couldn't connect with people. And
why do you think that?
I was super shy. I was super shy. I was super reserved, and I don't really know where that came from. I remember being very attached to my parents. I remember when I would get dropped off at, say, kindergarten or something, just not wanting to be there, wanting to go home, and just not feeling like I fit in. I know when I started school kind of early, so I was the youngest in my grade at the time. And I think that was pretty challenging. Also moving from Connecticut to Rhode Island and knowing absolutely nobody. That was a really challenging time period for me.
Just to recap real quick, you were born in Connecticut.
Yep.
Then at the age of 5, I went to a new state in Rhode Island.
Yep.
And went to school for the first time in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, definitely change of environment for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, we talked about it in your episode, how common interests really form friendships. I don't know what I was interested in back then. And then I found soccer. And that was something that immediately put people in my life. And I was really fortunate I was one of the better players. And I think that drew people towards me. And for the first time, I kind of felt like life was okay. So going from trying to go to the nurse every single day and get picked up by my parents to actually, I don't want to say looking forward to going to school, but having a reason to.
Okay.
And with that, or probably around that time, getting into watching sports on TV. And you know, I look back at the first real role models in my life, maybe outside of my parents, were athletes.
Who's the first role model athlete off top?
Oh, man. So it probably Nomar. Yeah, that was probably the first for me.
For for those that don't know, Nomar Garcia Parra, former shortstop for the Boston Red Sox. Great player.
Yeah,
Great player. He was no Jeter, but great player.
I would agree with that. I can agree with that.
Nah, he's a great player. So yeah, so Nomar, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, that again also brought kind of people into my life and opened up this new world of sports.
So soccer player. So we're at the age of what? Or five, six,
Yeah,
seven?
probably in
Young.
that range, 6, 7.
Yeah.
And yeah, growing up in Rhode Island was really cool. And I think I was exposed to things that a lot of people weren't exposed to. I lived in an area where I was about a 10-minute walk to the beach.
Ooh.
I was a 10-minute walk to downtown Newport, Rhode Island. And I just got to experience some really, really cool things. I wish I really remember them. Again, I was young, and
Yeah.
that part of my life is certainly a blur. But at the age of 10, my parents decided that we were going to move back to Connecticut. And that was incredibly hard. And I looked at that because the move from Connecticut to Rhode Island was so difficult. I kind of looked at that as like a personal attack on me. Again, by no means was it, but
Right.
at 10 years old, I still think the world revolves around me. At 10 years old, it did revolve around me, you know?
Right.
But that was the time in my life that I learned a really hard, and at the time it seemed like a really beautiful lesson, but it was kind of one of those blessings blessing that turned out to be a curse. And that was I wanted to have friends, and I learned that if I turned into what I thought you wanted me to be, that's how I could make friends. And then that's when I really turned into a chameleon, and I would just start putting different masks on. So I moved into a neighborhood with some awesome people who were my age. It was probably 10, 11 years old.
So this is back in Connecticut?
This was in Connecticut.
All right, so we come back to Connecticut.
Yep.
All right.
And a lot, again, of my life was centered around soccer. So I started playing for a premier team, I think when I was 9 years old or 10 years old, right when I moved back. Again, playing up with older kids, which what is certainly a theme throughout my athletic career. Typically not playing with individuals my age, typically playing with older individuals. So it was challenging for me, I didn't feel like I could fit in just being me. And I always wanted to be more than what I was. So again, I was fit in with athletes, but then the kids who were getting in trouble in school, for whatever reason, that was always appealing to me. And reflecting back, they just looked like they were having fun. And I think my self-confidence was so low that I was like, oh, well, if I don't do the things they're doing, how am I ever going to get any girls? How am I ever going to really build that connection in those things that I was looking for?
Cool
So
kids.
the cool kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I started getting in trouble and doing things that certainly weren't genuine to me. And I vividly remember I would be like I remember in an art class, I was taking a test and I didn't want to get a good grade on it. And I intentionally answered questions wrong because I thought, hey, if I get a bad grade, I'm going to get respect from these other kids. And I thought nothing wrong with that because, again, the reward of having these relationships and really fitting in exceeded the negative ramifications.
Yeah, so we're talking self-sabotage.
Absolutely. From a pretty young age in pretty much every aspect of my life besides soccer.
Okay. Okay. So were you getting into trouble to where your soccer career was in danger?
Not even at all at this time.
Okay.
So yeah, this time, like, again, soccer was becoming my life. I was probably playing 5 days a week, traveling all over the New England area to play games, and it felt good. That felt like home for me. That felt I fit in the most, but I also was beginning to develop this other side of me.
And let's talk about that. What does that describe that?
So something that was to really describe that side, it was someone who had absolutely no self-confidence, didn't think that people would like unless I did the things that other people weren't doing. So I would let people stab me with pencils. I would get into a lot of fights. I would smash my head into lockers. Just doing really, by all means, unacceptable behavior, and just really I think you said it perfectly when you said self-sabotage. That was me. And at that moment, not only did I not think anything was wrong with it, but I thought it was cool. I thought people really were like, wow, look at this kid. He's crazy. He'll do anything.
And that fueled the acceptance.
Absolutely. Yeah. And although I think I felt accepted by these people because they were laughing, they were egging me on to do things, I truly wasn't accepted.
Right.
But again, what I didn't know didn't hurt me, right? I thought I was.
Yeah.
So a pretty pivotal moment that I didn't really realize at the time, when I was in 6th grade, I went back up to Rhode Island to visit one of my friends.
Okay.
I think I was 11 years old, and I was in his room, and he was like, hey, you want to get high? And at the time, this was the furthest thing from my mind. So I basically said, what are you talking about? He's like, hey, I have some weed. Do you want to get high? And I truly didn't. When I heard the idea of weed, it was, this is a drug. What if I get addicted? What if my soccer career goes down the drain? I genuinely didn't want to do it. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't say no. It wasn't, saying no actually was not an option for me. So I got high for the first time when I was 11 years old, and going into it, this is a one-time thing. When I get back to Connecticut, nobody's doing that here. So I'm going to be good. I can just do that, skate free, and that's that.
Did you enjoy it when you got high the first time?
Not really. It was an experience that was kind of uncomfortable, and it was actually, it was just, it didn't feel like I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, so you didn't want to do it, really didn't like it, but the fact that your friend wanted you to do it and he accepted you for doing it, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know the feeling. Yeah.
And then getting back to Connecticut, it kind of went like I anticipated it. I didn't get high. And then the next year I found out kids were getting high in my middle school.
Oh, Lord.
Yep. So that is when I started actually enjoying it. And it was, again, this thing in 6th grade where, hey, it's a one-time thing, I'm not going to do it again, turned into, hey, I'll do it on the weekends. And it wasn't every weekend, but the weekends I was able to get away without having soccer or whatnot. Like, I started getting high. And there's an immediate bond in getting high, right? It involves absolutely no effort. You feel good, you laugh, you have a good time. I look back probably on my life when getting high was the most enjoyable. And those were the years, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, when there was no consequences. It was simply fun.
Yeah, laughs and giggles, basically.
Right.
Right. So now we're going 6th, 7th, 8th.
Yeah.
That's our speed rolling right into high school, huh?
Yeah, and in high school was a very interesting experience, to say the least, for me.
I'm sorry. But 6th, 7th, 8th We're getting high every other weekend, laughs and giggles with the friends. How's soccer going though?
Soccer's great.
Okay.
I had not missing a beat. Everything. I mean, my heart and soul is with soccer still.
Okay, at this
Right.
point.
In eighth grade. So it would have been, I'm not sure the year, but in eighth grade, they started what was known as the United States Soccer Academy League, right? It was, I think at the time, the top like 64, 72 teams in the country. They decided, hey, we're going to build this league where we're going to showcase the top talent around the country because our soccer system is, I think at the time, it was only the Olympic Development Program, and we weren't producing whatsoever.
Trash.
So they said, hey,
No disrespect to the United States national soccer team, but it was kind of they're great now though. But it was kind of trash for a long time.
yeah, and I would argue that they're still pretty trash right now.
I mean, compared to
Yeah, and I guess the idea was hey, we're gonna showcase talent. We're gonna have college national scouts at a lot of the games, so we can try to streamline this system and really get the most talented soccer players in the country in one place. So the second year of the league was my freshman year in high school. I was 15, I believe, at the time. And it was a 16-year-old team. So I was one of, I think, two 15-year-olds who were asked to join that team. So that was a really exciting moment for me. Since I started playing soccer, I wanted to go to college for it. It was, I call it my first true love. It really was. At the same time, I knew the varsity coach well from some of my younger years, and I knew I was going to be on the varsity team as a freshman. So that summer, I started hanging out with the varsity soccer team. And
you're a freshman.
I was a freshman. And immediately, how do I fit in? Let's go party, right? And that is when I always had these boundaries in place for myself, right? Hey, I'm only going to get high on the weekends. And slowly that began to shift. Okay, I'll get high on the weekends maybe a day after practice. Okay, I'll get high on the weekends, a day after practice, and maybe we'll sprinkle in a little like Thursday or Wednesday in here, right?
Yep.
And before I knew it, it was a regular thing. And again, I had no consequences in my life. My freshman year on my varsity team, I led my goals, the team in goals as a freshman. I felt like I was on top of the world.
So you're playing. Wow. So you're playing freshman. You lead your team in goals scored. That's impressive. And you're also playing in that U.S. Development League?
Yeah, so that league for New England began in right after the high school season. So the league started around November.
Gotcha.
As you can imagine, we got our asses kicked by everyone we played because other teams were playing year round, right, and practicing together year round, whereas we started, months and months after.
Basically March to November, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So I finished my high school season. We were pretty bad, as you can imagine, as a freshman, led the team in goals.
Yeah.
Not a good team, but it was, again, a great experience, and I felt accepted and I felt a part of, and it was really cool. And then the academy team started, and I was starting at left back and playing really, really well. And then in February of that year, I took a trip out to Utah to go snowboarding with a couple of my friends. And again, I didn't think anything of it. My coach was pissed, and he benched me for, I think, 2 games, and that destroyed my confidence. So I looked at it as he didn't like me. Again, this probably was pretty standard. Like, hey, if you're going to take a break during the season to go do something recreational, there's going to be a consequence. Right. I didn't look at it like that. Like, I looked at it as, hey, he doesn't like me as a person. He doesn't think I'm a good player. I'm not worthy. And then to make matters worse, my first game back, about 5 minutes into the game, I broke my foot.
Oof.
And now I'm out about 5 or 6 weeks.
Yep.
And so I lived in Brantford. We practiced at Bridgeport University at their field up there. That was where our home games were. So it was about, at the time, probably 45-ish minute drive, something like that.
Yeah.
So, mind you, getting high is something I'm doing, but it's not a massive part of my life this time. But now I'm thinking, man, I'm driving 45 minutes to practice 3 days a week to sit on a bench, and then traveling all over the country to sit on a bench and watch kids play games. I could be out partying with my friends. I could be actually having a good time. So certainly my use probably increased a little bit at that time. And then in the back of my mind too, it's, hey man, all I'm doing is smoking weed and drinking. I'm like every high schooler in the world, right? There's no way this is even a thought of being a problem at this time. So I come back, and now it's probably April or May. I start playing again. I slowly start getting my starting position back. Things are going pretty well. And I was down in North Carolina at a showcase, and I ended up there's probably 5 minutes left in the game, and I got my head taken off, and I was all wobbly. I came out, I was on the sideline, and, someone goes down, you don't just get to sub them out. You're down a man.
Yeah.
And we were out of subs at the time, so it was either finish the last 5 minutes of the game, or my team's playing 10v11 for the last 5 minutes or so. And I went back in, and to my luck, I got smashed in the head again, and I was out cold. And I woke up in the hospital. I don't know timing. I don't really remember much from it. I was really messed up, and it was my second or third pretty severe concussion, not including all the self-induced harm I did smashing my head into things, thinking that was going to make me cool.
Right.
But this was a lasting one. And what the doctor said was, hey, no physical activity for the indefinite future. So it was about May, June-ish at this time. So school's about to be over. Soccer, the one thing giving me structure in my life, is no longer a thing. And it was fair game. And what I started to do was find this new group of friends. So instead of hanging out with my soccer family, who certainly we would be getting high together, it was after taking care of business. Now I gravitated toward the kids who were getting high from the minute we woke up to the minute we went to sleep.
Sounds like you had sounds like you went from structured, busy schedule to now idle time, summer break.
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing to do.
Nothing. I wasn't working. Didn't have any interest in working at all. School was out, soccer was out, and it was fair game. And that, without me knowing, is when things took off. And again, in my mind, I was always able to justify. And I think part of it was when you hang out with people who do the things you do, it's really easy to think the whole world is doing it. And I genuinely believe that, right? I thought that because I'm waking up and the first thing on my mind is how am I going to go hang out with my friends and get high, that this is what everyone is doing. And that slowly crept into my life. And by going into sophomore year, I'm getting high every day. I'm getting high before school. That is the first thing on my mind when I'm waking up and the last thing on my mind when I'm going to sleep. And my sophomore year, I still ended up leading my team in goals as a freshman. So again, I didn't have these big consequences in my life to say, hey, pump the brakes. And even if I did, I wasn't going to look for that, right? I was going to blame it on my parents or blame it on the school or blame it on whoever. I was in no way going to take accountability for what I was doing. And yeah, so
So you're able to get back. So you were out indefinite starting in May, June.
Yep.
So you're able to get back for September.
Yeah, I probably started up again end of August, I would say, is when I was able to get back going.
All right.
So it was about a 3-month-ish layoff.
But in this 3 months, instead of smoking once a week, on the weekends, once a week after with the guys, now you're in the morning, all day during the day. Now you develop these habits.
Right. And on top of that, I think something that was kind of freaky is like having a concussion alone. And so in 2016, I got another really, really bad concussion, and I wasn't getting high at all at the time. And I was terrified, literally terrified. I did not feel like myself for probably 6 weeks. And I didn't know still my word retrieval skills probably aren't what they used to be. It really took a toll on me. And I didn't even notice anything when I was in high school, right? Being high was that state. I didn't even know that I'm not even feeling the way I'm supposed to feel.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was a pretty freaky thing looking back on.
Yeah, I felt like one thing when I was smoking, before I got incarcerated, I was smoking so much, right? And then I got incarcerated, and obviously that stopped. And now, a few months later, I feel unfogged. Like I felt so foggy,
Right.
and didn't realize I was foggy until I stopped, until I was sober.
Right.
And it kind of like unfogged, for lack of a better term. So it sounds like you were in that fog with the smoking and the concussion.
Right. Yeah, and I couldn't really tell what was what. I just knew my normal baseline was under the influence. Right. So kind of coming back, my sophomore year goes great. Academy season starts, and I'm thinking, this is my second year on the team. I'm finally one of the older people on the team now. I'm going to be the captain. Things are going to be great. And the first game comes around, I'm on the bench. And I'm thinking, what the hell is going on here? Right? I'm feeling like I deserve to be the leader of this team, and I'm not even on the field. And again, I'm not thinking I'm getting high every single day. I'm not working hard. I'm playing with some of the, and again, I know I live in Connecticut, second smallest state in the country. Obviously, the talent here was nowhere near the talent in a place like Texas or Florida or California. Yeah. So again, I'm taking that into consideration, and I want to put that out because I don't want it to sound like I was this amazing soccer player. I was a pretty average, maybe a slightly above average soccer player.
I think you're being modest.
No, I mean that just is the reality of it. So I definitely don't want to send that false message out. But at that time,
I don't know, Betty. I don't know. I mean, I get what you're saying, but the downplay leading your team is scoring 2 years straight. That's pretty impressive. Like you know, like
and again, small high school team. And again, I appreciate the compliments. I do. I very much do. But coming back, I'm just not thinking that these are kids who are playing in the best league this country has to offer. They are working night and day to get better at what they're doing, and I'm focusing on trying to get high.
Right.
And I'm thinking that I'm entitled to just do well. Right? That I'm entitled to be on the field, and that was not the case whatsoever. So instead of...
Do you think you digressed?
Without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, I was certainly not in the shape I used to be in. Yeah, I wasn't in the best shape. The love was fading quickly. And being on the bench zapped the remaining confidence I had. And about maybe a month or two into the season, I went up to my coach and I said, look, man, I'm not doing well in school. I can't play for you anymore. And I wasn't doing well in school, but that wasn't the reason I quit. The reason I quit was I could no longer dedicate 5 to 7 days of my life a week playing this sport and missing out on opportunities to have fun and try to make relationships and things like that. And I quit the thing I loved the most that year. And it really snowballed after that.
So right after that benching, you didn't play any of the games? It was over?
I played some, maybe off the bench. I don't think I really started any. It was pretty much over.
So you didn't even finish the season?
No, I quit. I mean, I didn't even finish half the season.
Gotcha.
I quit right off the bat.
So just going back, I know you mentioned that you knew you were going to start your freshman year because you knew the coach. Is this the same coach at the time?
Yes.
And what did that coach
say? The different coach. So high school, I only had that coach for 1 year, and then a new coach came in.
Oh, okay.
For the academy, that was totally different coaches.
Okay.
But I did my academy coach. I had played. He was my coach since I was 11 years old. Oh, so I had a really good relationship with him, and quitting was not an easy thing to do.
Right.
That was probably the scariest thing I had done at that time.
Oh, so you quit both?
I didn't quit high school. I just quit the academy.
Okay. Understood. Got you. So now we're at the snowball effect, huh?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
So as you can imagine, when you're doing something 5 days a week, it eats up a lot of your life. That time just got replaced with what I wanted to do. And things started to get out of hand quickly. And again, because now I'm completely hanging out with people, pretty much entirely hanging out with people who are getting high the way I'm getting high, I didn't know what was and wasn't normal anymore. I thought that this is just what you do. It's just weed. It grows in the ground. There's nothing wrong with it. Can't get addicted. Like, I'm good.
What's your family saying? Because you sound like you've been getting high. Well, not sound like. You have been getting high basically since the age of 11, and now we're at what, age 16?
Yeah. So they, for a while, had no idea.
Okay.
And then it became abundantly clear. And I think, like any parents, you don't want, it's pretty hard to accept that this is something your kids are doing.
Oh yeah, for sure. Denial.
And they certainly were in denial for a while until one day. So I have a younger brother who is a brilliant human, and
Killer Cam.
and he really didn't like who I was becoming. I don't know if he ever liked me, but he certainly didn't like me now. And he got pissed off one day and went to my mom and said, "Hey, you know that every morning before school, Ben gets high in the bathroom." And my mom's like, "No, stop. You're just trying to be mean to your brother and put him down. Don't do that." So one day my mom walked outside on the back deck and she looked up and she saw a fat cloud come out the window and she yelled up to me and my heart dropped. I mean, into my stomach. I'm like, oh, shit. So they didn't know what to do. They knew that, hey, this is way further down the road than they had thought.
Yeah, blindsided him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they called my school and spoke with my assistant principal, who I had developed a little bit of a relationship with over the years. Because again, I was not I wasn't the best individual in school, and spent a lot of time with him. And my mom basically said something along the lines of, "Hey, Ben's getting high before he's going to school and we really need help. What resources do you have?" And instead of providing resources, they suspended me. So I came, they got me out of class. They said, "Did you get high this morning?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's every day." And they said, "Okay, well, you need to go home and you now have a 10-day suspension." And I said, "Great, I can now get high for 10 days.
Oh, let me just take a step back with that. I gotta unpack that. Your mother, episode 1, we talk about mother and brother. I said your mother, but your mother calls for help
Yep.
because of an action that you took in her house. And instead of any type of help being given, they suspended you for something you did at her house.
Yes. Yeah, They said I was a danger to the school.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
It is a shame.
That's a shame.
And again, whether they provided an intervention or not at that moment probably would have done virtually nothing. But certainly suspending me and making me go home, where again, my parents try to do, I can't stress this enough, they tried to do everything in their power to help me. I didn't want help, and if I wanted to do something, I was going to do it. I wasn't going to listen. You could take, and if they did, like I had nothing. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have money. I had nothing. And I just was going to do the things I was going to do. So again, instead of help, I just got exactly what I wanted, which was not being in school and having the ability to continue to get high.
And getting the attention that you want.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Wear it like a badge of honor.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. That's what my persona was built around. I'm going to smoke more than you. I'm going to drink more than you. And I'm going to be more crazy than you.
Oh, so now we're drinking too?
Oh yeah. Drinking started early. The first time, drinking started early. But that certainly is, those things were pretty
hand in hand.
Yeah.
Got you.
So activities like that just kept beginning to happen, and I was getting in more and more trouble. And finally, there was one night I was at this person's house. I passed out. I woke up. It was like 4 a.m. Their parents were a police officer, and I was freaking out. I'm like, I know I'm not supposed to be here. If I get caught here, this is going to be a serious problem.
Yes, sir.
And I got out of their house. The alarm went off. I'm running down the street. I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I cut through the woods because there's the shortcut through the woods to get to my house. And I end up falling into this swamp. And I'm up to here in mud. I pull myself out, take my clothes off. So here's the street. Here's my street, and it's separated by all these woods.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I'm walking down my street completely naked. And I open the door and I get into my house, and it's probably about 5:30 in the morning at this point. And my mom is sitting on the top step going upstairs, just waiting for me. And I don't think I even said anything to her. I think I just put my head down in shame, walked into my room, and passed out. And I think that was the moment that they said, this can't go on anymore. I had created so much, as you can imagine, pain in my family just by being completely selfish and self-centered. And they said, hey, we're going to create this, try to do some form of an intervention. So it was probably March or February of my sophomore year in high school. It was a Wednesday, and it was probably, I asked my parents, hey, can I skip school today? Which is something that they would never let me do. But this day they let me. And I was like, that's kind of weird, but thought nothing of it. And I spent that whole day doing really stupid things. I got home, and it was probably about 11:30 maybe-ish at night. I passed out. I'm pretty drunk. About 1:32 in the morning, my door gets busted open, and these two huge dudes come and they surround me. And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. I'm in this like very hazy
I'm sure
stage, and I'm just like, dude, what? So they look at me and they verbatim pretty much say, you can do this the hard way or the easy way. Either you can come with us and we'll bring you nicely and we'll have a good time and get you to where you're going, or you can try to run, you can try to fight, and we will handcuff you and bring you to your destination. So I basically said, how long am I going for? They said, maybe like a week. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll be back here smoking blunts in Bradford in a week. I'll be good to go. So I went with them. I don't even think my parents could look at me. They just took me right out, got in the car, drove to the airport, got on a plane with them. No idea where I'm going. The whole time I'm like, hey, can you guys like give me a little bit of insight? They're like, nah, would tell me nothing. So my head is spinning. Get on a plane and quite literally fly as far away from Connecticut as possible. And they bring me to Bend, Oregon.
Bend, Oregon.
Yep.
All right.
So I get off the plane, get in this car, drive to this place where I learned that I'm going to be quote unquote camping. And all I knew at that time was they made me strip naked, put on this wilderness clothes. I had this huge pack, and they said, get in this truck. So I get in this truck, and we're driving, I don't even know how long. They pull off the road. They're going down this crazy, just dirt desert, basically. Don't even know how long we drove for, maybe an hour, hour and a half. It's pitch black, and I finally get to this campsite. And I wouldn't even call it a campsite, but it's this place. I see a bunch of other people. There's some staff members. The staff member comes and greets me, brings me to this tarp. Like, we didn't even have tents out there. We literally had tarps that we had to put up with like trees and rocks. And I fell asleep, and I woke up the next day in the middle of a snowstorm with nobody around. No shoes, because they take your shoes. And I'm thinking, what the hell is going on here?
Wow.
So they come and one of the staff members greets me by saying, hey, what's going on, Tarzan? And I'm like, what the hell? Why are you calling me Tarzan? And he said, yeah, we saw this video of you jumping out of a tree into another tree. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's like a weird thing, which I had literally done that the day before. I had tried to jump out of like a 30-foot tree fort into another tree and just failed miserably.
So Lord have mercy.
Yeah. So
Evil Knievel, man.
yeah, I did everything and anything to get attention. And a lot of that involved hurting myself. So basically I'm at this place. I know nothing that's going on. I guess it takes a few days for you to do some work before you can even meet the other group members. So my mind is racing, and I'm thinking of, how do I get out of here? And also I'm thinking, dude, why am I here? I'm here with people who are addicted to heroin. I'm here with people who have suicidal ideation and anger problems. All I do is smoke weed and drink. I'm just a normal high schooler, man. In my mind is saying, how can I get out of here?
Yeah.
So what I decided on day 3 was, hey, if I break a bone, they got to let me go. They're not going to keep me here if I have a broken bone. So I'm sitting under this tree and I pick up this rock, probably the size of that coffee mug, and I just start smashing my wrist. Just smashing it until I can't take it anymore. And I wake up the next day and this thing, I'm not joking, is double the size of my wrist now. And my hand starts locking up in ways where I can't move my fingers.
Right.
And it's incredibly painful.
I'm sure.
So I walk up to one of the staff members and I'm like, I think I slept on this wrong. And he's looking at me like I'm out of my mind, but he watched this video of me a few days, literally 5 days earlier. So I'm telling him like, oh, I messed it up in that fall. So he had no idea that I was smashing my wrist up. But they were like, oh yeah, we got to get you to the hospital now, basically. So I got picked up that day. I got brought to the hospital and the hand specialist comes in and says, hey, you severed your tendon. We're going to need to operate on it. And in the back of my mind, I can't tell you how, this was one of the proudest moments of my life to this point. I'm thinking, I literally just severed my own tendon and am able to manipulate myself out of a program where I am in the middle of the desert. There's no way to escape. Kids try to escape all the time. There's a 0% chance you are escaping. And I just found a way to escape. I beat the system. So the staff member that accompanied me to the hospital said, we're going to get in touch with your parents. They're going to fly out and they'll have to pick you up. So I'm thinking I just won.
Yeah.
So I go back out. Best night sleep of my life that night in the little sleeping bag under the tarp in the snow. Felt great. A couple days later, I go back to the hand specialist and he says, it's not a complete sever. You have ligament damage and you broke your wrist. Here's a cast. You're good to go. So instead of getting out, now I'm spending the next 2 months or so of my life in the wilderness with a cast on my dominant hand.
Yeah, Lord have mercy.
It backfired.
Yeah, it definitely did. Wow.
So at that point, again, I'm an incredibly manipulative individual, and I'm really good at finding ways to get what I want. Really, really good. And there was no more ways. I had exhausted unless I really wanted to like try to break my leg or do something like that, which I just wasn't willing to go through that again.
Right. It might not even work.
And that's it. Like shit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I basically said, okay, you know what? I'm going to be a chameleon again. I'm going to put that mask on and I'm going to be the best client here that I possibly can be. And there was like these different phases there. You had like earth phase, fire phase, water phase, and then air phase or something like that. And maybe like 5, if that, % of people make it to fire state or to the third one, water stage. And I made it. And with that, like, again, you're in the wilderness, you're sitting on the ground, you're sleeping on the ground. You can't sit on anything. It's miserable. And when you make it to water phase, like you get this nice comfortable chair. Like it's pretty cool. When I would have to go to the bathroom, I'd have to like yell my name while I'm going to the bathroom every time. Like I didn't have to do that anymore. So I really took on this leadership role and I made the minimum stay that I could make.
You know, it's, through this part that you're explaining the story, it's hard not to notice that you smiled. And for me, that just comes back to this acceptance, because like now that you're knocking these levels out, you're crushing it out there, you're being accepted, and you're getting what you want in that regard, right?
Yeah, and when I was there, I was getting in touch with my true self. Like there's no doubt about that. I was there and I'm like, I'm going to get back into soccer. When I get home, I can't believe I turned into this son. Like I was an absolute monster. I don't want to be that person anymore. And I genuinely bought, like, it wasn't like I put the mask on at first,
right,
and then I bought in.
Okay.
And I truly wanted to change. And I remember my parents came out and saw me, and I told them exactly this. And they looked at me and they're like, you're a new person. And I truly felt like I was. But
Well, in the moment you were.
yeah, well, that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I made a list of all these people in my life, and I was saying, okay, well, these people are real friends. These aren't real friends. Like, I'm going to gravitate towards them, and it's going to be this thing. So my dad came and picked me up. That shower felt so good. That first shower, that first meal felt so good after eating beans and rice every day.
Oh yeah.
It was nice, man. We got on a plane. We flew back home. And I think the biggest problem, which again, nobody, if you're just a parent wanting to help your kids, there's so much unknown when it comes to actually helping. And there's no real textbooks out there that really break it down. And I think one of the biggest flaws of this whole process was coming home. There was no real game plan. So I got home, in my mind, I'm not going to get high. I'm going to start playing soccer again. Within 3 days, I was getting high again.
Why?
So the day I got back into school, I was like a celebrity. So back this up. When I jumped out of the tree the day before I got taken away to the program, there was a video that went up, and the video insinuated that I died. It said R.I.P. Ben Backus, the days. So people were blowing up my family, being like, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. And mind you, like, I just got sent across the country. That was hard enough on my parents. And now they're getting calls from their friends from all over the country being like, I can't believe, I'm so sorry. Is there anything we can do?
Oh my God.
So,
and you're not there.
Right. And I'm disappeared. It wasn't like there was a heads up to the school. It was one day I'm here, one day I'm not, and then I'm not there for months.
Right.
Right. So
what months were this?
Had to have been maybe February through April, something like that. So yeah, when I got back, it was like I have returned, right? Like I'm this character now. And that felt so good, right? And it was the same people that I was showing with before that were so happy to see me. So happy to see me. So in that moment, whether it was that specific moment or 24 hours, 48 hours later, my mind was made up that I'm going to start getting high again. But again, I'm going to go back to like it was in 7th grade. I'm only going to do it on the weekends, right? I'm going to put these boundaries in place. And from the moment I got high again, that was it. And I just kept getting high. And I think I was able to hide it pretty well for a few months. And then it went right down the drain. And at this point, my parents started going to Al-Anon, which is basically Alcoholics Anonymous for family members and loved ones who have someone struggling. And what that did for me was made it so hard. They stopped enabling me in any ways they were. They had already done a pretty good job of not enabling me, but now it was gone. So they put these rules in place. I was probably 16, 17 at the time. And it was basically no phone, no money. If you got to be home by midnight. If you're not home by midnight, you can sleep in the car. They would leave a blanket in the backseat of the car or sleep out. And they did what they called detaching with love. And it was evident that they loved me. And if I ever wanted help, they were going to be there for me. But they couldn't do it anymore, right? They did everything they could to help me to this point. And it was very, very, very clear by my actions that I wanted to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it.
All right. So they took that your talent at a manipulation was no longer working.
Yeah, it was done. They cut that piece off.
How'd that make you feel?
It pissed. I was fucking pissed.
Right.
Yeah, they stopped carrying money on them. They hid their credit cards, all of that stuff. So here I am with absolutely nothing.
You stopped winning because I feel like you were winning. Like, you know what I'm saying? You were happy at winning at manipulating and stuff like that. Now that you're not winning.
Yeah, and I would never say I was really winning at manipulating. Like, if you call letting someone tase you for $5 winning, maybe that's winning. But, like, that's the
that's a good point.
Like, that's the shit I was doing, right? Doing really stupid things. Like, I would let someone crack me in the face for, like, 5 cigarettes. Like, quite literally, I would do anything and everything just to get something. So I never felt like I was winning, but I did feel like I was getting what I wanted.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, I do. I do. I think in a sense of black and white winning, like you're trying to do this and then you get what you're trying to do. Yeah.
Sure.
But I think, you know, how we describe winning with winning ways and everything, that's that having that positive vibe, that uplifted spirit. Yeah, you're not winning
Right.
in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that summer to that point, all I was doing was smoking weed and drinking. And clearly that was a massive problem in my life, but I couldn't claim that, right? Because if I acknowledged that, there would be a part of me that would feel guilty for doing it. And there was no guilt associated with getting high at that point. It just felt, this is what I want my life to be.
Hey, you're a normal, in your mind, you're a normal high schooler.
Right.
Right.
So around that summer going into my junior year, fall, that period, I had an experience with ecstasy for the first time.
Okay.
And that really, I never felt better. I never felt, and again, it makes sense. This drug is wildly effective for doing it. And that's why they're beginning to do a lot of trauma therapy using MDMA. But for someone who was using it solely for recreational purposes, I thought this is the cheat code to life here.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize, right, is ecstasy targets specifically serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter that regulates mood. And one pill can release up to 80% of body's serotonin at once, which is obviously going to make you feel really good, but it's not being brought back up in the normal range, right? Like I score a goal, serotonin is released, and then it's taken back up, right? Whereas this just floods, and those baseline levels don't necessarily aren't the same.
Right.
So I started getting really depressed around this time, and not really recognizing it. You know, I considered myself kind of just like, when it came to drugs at this point, I'll do anything and everything. Weed and alcohol have to be there. Anything else, if you have it in your pocket, like I like it type of thing. But at that time, my life became like Groundhog's Day. And that's really the best way to describe it. Every day was the same thing. Wake up maybe 6:30 in the morning, pile of sweat with my mind racing saying, how am I going to get money so I can get something today? Or how am I going to hook up with my friends so I can get something today to be okay? If I'm high, I'm on top of the world. And I think that was the hard part, is when I was high, life felt so good. It felt so fun. I felt so connected. I felt so loved. I felt so liked. I truly did.
Yeah.
But when I wasn't high, it was the complete opposite. Why am I alive? There's no point anymore. So I was still playing soccer for my varsity team at that time. And it was, looking back, more the idea of, look, I'm a varsity athlete. How could I possibly have a problem? So it was I would put these things in place that would really make it hard for me to acknowledge the reality of my life.
Right.
And yeah, I probably got thrown out of more games than I played in that year. And it was really embarrassing, especially my high school coach at the time. When I was 12 years old, he coached, I think, the 14-year-olds or something like that. And when I was like 12, I was playing with him and the 14-year-olds. And I had a really great relationship with this person, and I pretty much just threw it away. And yeah, around that time as well, I was having serious problems at school, right? The second something wore off, if I couldn't get something else, I had to leave. There was no maintaining a school day with me not being under the influence. It actually wasn't possible. I was going to get into a fight. I was going to do something really dumb. So I started leaving. I started getting in a lot of trouble for my last couple classes, and my assistant principal was truly an amazing person. He saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. And he, I think, just wanted to help. And he made it so I got to leave school at, I think, 12:15 every single day. And if I was still on school grounds at that time, I would be arrested for trespassing. I'm like, deal. That's good. I can make it from 7 to 12. I can do that. I can make sure I can do that. Because prior to that, I was just going to be done with school. So he allowed me to do that in about, I want to say, February of my junior year in high school. I was 17. I went on a skiing trip with a couple buddies. And that was one thing. Snowboarding was one of the most freeing experiences of my life. It was something that whether I was under the influence or not, I loved it.
Okay.
But I was still really consumed with drugs at that time. So I hadn't slept the night before. I went on this snowboarding trip with a couple friends. I get up to the mountain and I'm just like crashing. I take a couple E-pills. I'm up again. We're going and I saw my buddy hit this jump at, I think we were at like Okemo or something like that up in Vermont.
Okay.
So I watched him hit it. I hit it, totally misjudged the speed. And so how a mountain it goes, it has like kind of the takeoff here, then it's flat for a while, and then it has like a slow incline here. And I overshot all of this and the landing spot, and I came down probably, I don't know what it was, 20, 25 feet. And I just heard this pop. And I was immediately in this just like acute state of pain in my knee.
Okay.
I get down to the bottom of the mountain and my knee is beginning to swell up. I can't really bend it all the way. So I was like, screw it. This is going to be my last time snowboarding this year. Like I definitely did something bad. And at this point it was probably only like 11 or 12. So I went in for a little bit and then I went back out and I rode on it the rest of the day. And I literally couldn't get down the mountain at the end. Like it was really, really bad. We had to go home. I ruined the trip for everyone. And I get home and I go to the doctor the next day or whenever I could get in. They do the test, the MRI, and I ended up tearing my ACL. And with that, I got a nice prescription for, it was either Vicodin or Percocet, something. It wasn't super strong by any means, but at that point, again, I like whatever's in someone's pocket. Now I finally got something in my pocket. And drinking was a big part of my life at that time. I couldn't stop drinking. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't really eating. And most nights I was, again, not to get, it was just nothing. I would be throwing up and it would just be this black stuff coming out of me. And I thought nothing really of it at the time. I mean, when I was doing it, I'm like, I'm never going to do this again. I can't do this anymore. I started to acknowledge that what I was doing wasn't feeling good anymore.
Oh, okay. So this one started changing.
But then I would wake up in the morning and those thoughts would be gone.
Let me ask you this. Were those thoughts when you were already high?
Those thoughts were when I was just pretty much throwing up from everything most nights.
Okay.
And that's when it was like just this pain, just being like, I can't do this anymore, man. I'm worn out. But then I'd wake up the next morning and that would be, felt like it was a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter. So that went on for a few weeks. And then it was during April break of my junior year in high school. So April 21st, 2011. And I woke up and my day was going, and somewhere in the early morning, my parents said, hey, you have a psychiatrist appointment today. And that took me off guard because normally I knew when I was going to see my psychiatrist. So we get in the car and my brother's with us. Another red flag goes up and I'm like, all right, I know what is about to happen. I've been here before.
Right.
So we get into this office and we're sitting down and go through the typical spiel. We love you. We care about you. We want to give you one more shot to get help.
Intervention time.
That's right. And I looked at them and I said, absolutely not. I'm perfectly happy doing the things I'm doing. And again, they were at the point, this was the last ditch effort. Their goal then, it was April. My mom was putting in the eviction notice, meaning I was still 17, so I couldn't be evicted. But the day I turned 18, she wanted that ready to go, or shortly thereafter, they were going to hand me a one-way plane ticket to California and $500. That was it. So I was going to drop out of school after my junior year and head out to California. That was kind of the plan at that point.
Oh, wow.
And this was the last ditch effort to try to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, of course. Right.
And I just didn't want it. And it wasn't, I don't remember enough about that moment to be like, I said this, and this. I just know, again, there was nothing anyone was going to do at that time for me to change.
Right.
So I leave my psychiatrist's office It's around lunchtime. Go out to lunch with my brother and my parents, and I will never forget this conversation. And it probably doesn't go exactly how this is because, again, memory is very faulty, but I have told this story pretty much regularly since the injury, so I think it's pretty accurate. But it basically went something like this. Look, I smoke weed every day. I'm drinking like 5 days a week, and I do pills, but I only do pills in school, so it's cool. Everybody does pills in school. How else do people get through the day? And I'm saying this, and they're kind of looking at me like you are, like, dude, you're out of your mind. And in my mind,
That's
again,
the look I'm giving you.
In the moment, because I surrounded myself with people doing what I was doing, I really thought this.
Well, that was your reality.
It was my reality.
Right.
And I'm basically trying to persuade them that I don't have a problem while telling them that I clearly have a problem. But I didn't really get that. I just thought this is normal.
Yeah.
So I leave there and, I get dropped off at my buddy's house and probably 2-3 in the afternoon at this point. I go up in there. He has one of the big 24-ounce Gatorade bottles filled with vodka. No one's drinking it. I'm like, can I have that? He's like, absolutely. So we're drinking it, probably drink about 3/4 of it and then pour the rest. There was a red Solo cup, poured it into a red Solo cup. And again, I had a torn ACL at this point, but I would just walk on it because the world was my painkillers. Essentially everything I was doing numbed the pain. And we went to the rec center in Brantford to play basketball. And I probably had maybe the equivalent of 2 drinks. So maybe like 3 ounces of vodka left in my cup.
Okay.
And the cup was right next to the basketball post. That's what it's called, right? Thing holding the basket up.
The basket, the pole.
Yeah, the pole. Thank you. And someone shot the ball and it knocked over my cup and I lost it. And I ran over and I got on my hands and knees and I started licking the vodka off the ground. And at this point, they're all making fun of me. And I just remember being so angry. Like, dude, you're telling me if this was the rest of your alcohol, like you wouldn't be as mad as me right now? I was really genuinely pissed. So now I'm out of alcohol. I no longer really need this group of people that I'm with. And unfortunately, that was the reality. Like I like to think I really did like these people. Like I really did. I formed really meaningful relationships, or what I thought were meaningful relationships over the years. But I definitely could say that I liked getting high on anything more than I liked hanging out with them. So once they were out of substances, I needed to go find my next spot, which was a pretty usual thing for me to do. So I hitchhiked a ride over to a place called Pleasance Point in Brantford, Connecticut. And I remember jogging up the back of this cliff. And all I'm thinking is, man, I'm about to get high. This is going to be great. And at the top of the cliff, there's a monument that might be like this high. And then it's flat, and it probably stays flat for, like 7 feet, right? You think like 7 feet, something like that. So it's probably flat for about 7 feet. And I come running in the typical Ben Backus fashion of just trying to make a scene. I launch myself off this monument. I come down, my left leg good, my right leg with the torn ACL comes down, buckles, and I roll. And I drop off the side of this cliff. I fall about 5 feet. There's a little lip, pop off that, and then drop about 35 feet to the ground.
Wow.
Yeah. So but by the time I got up there, I was off.
I'm sorry, but you were by yourself when this happened?
So I was meeting up with a group of friends. I think there was probably like 3, 4, or 5 people up there. So they were already up there. So I was just trying to make my entrance scene.
I got you. So I just want to take a step back because this is powerful. We talked about that day licking up the vodka off of there. Now,
This is the same day.
Yeah, no. This
Yeah.
is April 21st,
April 21st.
2011.
Yep.
You seen a psychiatrist earlier.
Yep.
Basketball court, playing ball, licking up the liquor. Now you leave these people, these friends. So what are you considering these friends? Are these the cool kids too?
Yeah. Everyone I'm hanging out with, I'm liking. Right? Everyone I'm hanging out with has different, they're the same yet different, right? A lot of them like didn't have problems, but they liked to get high, and they liked me. I'm assuming they liked having me around for one reason or another, right?
Right.
So I definitely fit in a decent amount of groups.
So you're just because that's why I wanted to clear up. You're basically cool with this group of friends,
Right.
That's doing the same stuff, not as extreme as you, but they're doing it.
Yeah, and some of them probably were. Some of them probably weren't.
Okay.
Right? It was...
Yep. So then we go to, now we left there. We're going to this monument on this cliff, and that's a different group of friends doing the same thing, though.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, wow. So the ACL buckles, roll off, hit the lip 5 feet down, and then another 30 feet.
Probably somewhere in that range, yeah.
Wow. And the producer extraordinaires must be familiar with the location, huh? It's like yeah, it's a hangout. So that's a drop, huh?
It was a drop.
So the locals that's listening, shout outs to Brantford, Connecticut. But the locals that listening know, huh? So they're like, wow.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
one of those spots. Okay.
Yeah, and that was one of those spots. Pleasance Point it was an interesting spot. It was this little cliff overlooking the Thimble Islands. Really beautiful spot.
Okay.
So we would go up there all the time and just kind of get high, drink, have a good time.
Right.
Not really think anything of it.
So now we're at the point you fell off this cliff. Tell me exactly your mindset. Do you remember? Do you like?
I remember everything.
Do you?
Yeah, I was conscious through it all. And again, this was 10 years ago. So a lot has happened in 10 years.
Of course.
The reason, and I'm get into this kind of at a later point, right? But I started public speaking the year I broke my back, right? And I kind of just jumped the gun a little bit. But I've told this part enough where it is as accurate as I think any of my memories can possibly be.
Right.
So I was free falling, and it couldn't have been more than a couple seconds. And, it's this double-edged sword where if I wasn't drunk, I certainly would have died. But if I wasn't drunk, I probably wouldn't have been in that situation where I would have fallen, right? So I think the double-edged sword, but I was totally relaxed when I was falling, and I have no idea what thoughts were going through my head. It happened so quickly, right?
Of course,
30 feet sounds like 35 feet sounds like a far fall, but it's not that far, right? It happens real quick.
Right.
So I hit the left side of my body, kind of like almost like a log, just bam, right on the left side.
Okay.
And I ended up destroying a lot of ribs. And the first thing I did when I hit the ground is I spit out, and there's just blood pouring out of my mouth. And I thought, okay, I'm dying. Like, I'm internally bleeding. I'm going to die. And again, from what I've talked about for a long time, and I really do hope it's true, is that didn't really scare me, right? The thought that dying didn't seem scary. It was kind of, I'm doing the same thing every single day. Like, I went out doing what I was doing. If I die, I die. It wasn't like this, oh shit, I'm going to die moment. What got me was I couldn't breathe, or at least I thought I couldn't breathe. So my breath, because I had destroyed so many ribs, it was
super shallow.
Yeah, it was really bad. And again, my body was in shock.
Right.
So I wasn't in this excruciating amount of pain at this moment, but I couldn't breathe, and that scared me. So I was basically like, look, I don't care if I die, but just let me not struggle for breath.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so my buddy comes down, and I don't know how he got down this. And there's a lot of kind of little blessings put in there that allow me to be telling you this story today. Mm-hmm. So one of them, he was a lifeguard. So he had some understanding of what and what not to do if someone suffers a spinal cord injury. So another one of these kids got there, and he tried to pick me up and move me. Had he done that, I would have likely died on scene.
Right.
And he freaked out at this kid, made sure I was still. He grabbed my hand and he said, "Can you squeeze my hand?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Can you move your legs?" And I looked at him and I said, "Dude, what the fuck are you talking about? My legs are over my head right now." And he looked at me and he said, "No," like really reassuring me that they're flat on the ground. And I couldn't feel my legs at all. It was shut off. So he basically stayed with me and was talking with me. I remember I had a cigarette behind my ear, and he's like, "Yo, you want your cigarette?" And I'm like, "Dude, I can't fucking breathe right now. What do you mean, do I want this cigarette?"
Yeah, I thought you was about to be badass, say, "Yeah, light it up."
No, it wasn't even it was not possible.
Gotcha.
So the paramedics, EMTs came and got me, and somehow got me out of this really wooded, treacherous area. It made absolutely no sense that they were able to. And they got me in the back of the ambulance. I remember asking the person there, like, hey, I can't breathe. And I was panicking. They had the oxygen mask on me, and they reassured me, no, you have 98% oxygen or whatever, however they put it.
Yeah.
Like, you're good. Put the morphine, gave me morphine. I don't remember anything after that.
Gotcha. You know that's super serious. They're giving you morphine in the fucking.
Yeah, I'm assuming it was I don't know what. I'm assuming it was morphine.
Well, whatever
I woke up with a
they're
morphine pump. Yeah, I was done.
Yeah, well, now, it doesn't even matter if it was morphine.
Right.
For them to just give you anything like that.
Yeah, it was immediate.
Yeah, that tells
Yeah.
you right there that because usually you wait till you
Absolutely.
get to,
Yeah, I was
that's
done.
life and death right there.
So I wake up in the hospital a couple days later to the doctor saying, you have a 4% chance of walking again. And that, as you can imagine, is a really polite way of saying you're not walking again. Right. And I wish that my immediate thought was, what did I do? I screwed up. I'm done. That wasn't it. My thought was something along the lines of, and again, I don't know why I keep feeling the need to preface this, but I really have told this story for the past 10 years, and that is the only reason I can remember these lines, right? Because
sure.
I don't actually have these memories, but I've said it so much that I think I really hope this is the
Yeah,
picture.
I got you. Yeah.
But it was the idea that, dude, life was pretty boring. Like, I was getting high every single day. It was really hard to get money when you don't have anything. And, now I'm probably never going to have to buy another drink again because people are going to feel bad for me. I'm probably going to have unlimited painkillers for the rest of my life. Like, I'm going to find a way to make this okay. And that was where my mind went to.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that your mind was there?
I don't know. My life truly revolved around drugs at this point.
Right.
And just not being me, right? Being this idea of me that was this, again, crazy person that will do anything.
Right. And this is another prop for your stage because the world's your stage at this point. You're putting on shows, right? That's fair. You know what I'm saying?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was going to be this badge of honor.
Right.
in a
Exactly.
sense.
Right. Right.
So the next few days in the ICU were rough. So when I broke my back, part of my spine was here and part of it was over here. The doctor said something like well over 90% of people with my injury die on impact. There was virtually nothing holding my spinal cord together. So
That's why if your boy would have picked you up,
I would have been done.
Right.
Without a doubt.
Right.
So I was super lucky. Like, I was actually really, really lucky to have this opportunity to still be alive.
Right.
So I get out of the Yale and I get transferred to Gaylord in Wallingford, Connecticut. And that, I think I was like in Gaylord for another 4 weeks. And it was really hard. So when I got transferred to Gaylord, I hadn't, and again, trying to not get too graphic, but I hadn't really had a bowel movement in a couple days. So they were like, we gotta get your bowels moving.
Right.
I ended up not having a bowel movement for the better part of 2 weeks.
Wow.
And it was to the point where if I had my eyes open and there was light, I was so sensitive that I was just vomiting. And they were very close to doing surgery to try to remove this blockage. And fortunately, one night I was out of it, asleep. I had no idea, but I fortunately went. And I guess that was the best bowel movement of my life.
Wow.
But after that, I was able to begin to start to learn how to live life in a wheelchair, which again is wildly foreign when you are used to walking
Right.
and doing things like a typical human does. So even sitting up, like I was in this huge chest brace. If I sat up for more than sitting up 10 minutes felt like I just ran 3 miles. Sitting up for an hour felt like I was stayed up all night. The level of the lack of stamina I had was incredible.
Wow.
So I really wanted to get out of the hospital too. So I had physical and occupational therapy at Gaylord was amazing. The nursing was atrocious. And that just, again, I don't want to put it too much on blast, and I'm not going to go into details, but I had a really difficult time there. And I needed to get home. So I think I ended up spending just about 4-ish weeks at Gaylord. And I remember coming home in something that was truly beautiful, was how the community supported me. Someone who had wreaked so much havoc, still having all this love. And when I was in the hospital, I mean, hundreds of people came and saw me. It was overwhelming. People I had harmed, it didn't matter. The hospital rooms I felt like I always had someone there, whether I wanted them or not. I'm sure at times I really don't have much recollection, but I just remember it constantly being with people. And that was pretty special. Yeah. And I got home, the day I got home, my friends and family were building me a ramp. My house was not accessible at all, and we had all these plans to renovate. We never even got to that. So I'm home now, and I'm quite literally learning how to be paralyzed, right? And there's a lot that goes into that again, people who aren't hopefully never ever have to think about. But it was a lot. And my motivation to get better, I worked out every single day, no matter what. I was constantly just trying to get independent because I wanted to go party with my friends. That was my driving motivator to get better and to get stronger, was to be able to party. And let me back up a minute, because one of the most profound moments while I was at Gaylord was when my mom came and saw me. It was just her. And she was pissed, right? She was so grateful I was alive, but she was pissed.
Yeah. Well, she tried to avoid this.
She did everything she possibly could too. And she basically said, look, I don't care that you're in a wheelchair. If you get high, I'm giving you 3 strikes. If you get high when you get home, you're getting kicked out. You can go find whatever home to live in. Like, we're not dealing with this anymore. And that right there scared me more than the idea that I couldn't walk. That was pretty terrifying. And I remember trying to fight it, and I probably tried to manipulate myself out of that, saying, hey, I'm only gonna smoke weed. I'm not gonna drinking, benzos, all that. That's what kind of I was on when I fell off the cliff. Like, that's why I'm in a wheelchair. The weed has nothing to do with it. Right. So yeah, I was really scared of that. And I was also in this huge chest brace, like I said, and I was in that for about 12 weeks. So maybe 2 months after I got home, the chest brace came off, and the day it came off, I got high again. And again, it never got to the point it was before, mainly because I just didn't have the stamina or the energy to do this. It is hard enough being in a wheelchair, being fucked up in a wheelchair at that point in my life. It was incredibly challenging. And people didn't really want to be around me, right? People didn't want to do that with me anymore. Rightly so. I looked at it as like, you're abandoning me. Right. But why would I want to be reminded of this every time I see you and then keep getting that's going to ruin their experience. So that was another factor, kind of driving me towards a new way of life. I wanted to keep getting high, but I was running out of options. And the moment that that really started, or at least planted the seed for change in my life, I went to my buddy's house and I was smoking, and I had said I wasn't going to drink, and I started drinking. And just like everything, it was, I'll have one drink, right? Just one. And then that turned into a bunch more, and I got really sick. And I remember they had to bring me home. They were putting me in bed. Like, I was in pretty rough shape. And that night, this thought for the first time in my life came into my head, like, dude, what the fuck are you doing with yourself? You can't move 3/4 of your body due to, or at least in a great part, to drugs and alcohol. Right? And you're still trying to feed this shit into your body like it's nothing. Right.
So
And
this is the falling up moment, or the beginning of it.
that would certainly be the beginning of change in my life.
Gotcha.
So the next day was the first time that I acknowledged that, hey, I'm willing to at least talk to someone who might be able to help me. So before I broke my back, my parents had reached out to friends who had people in self-help groups, and they came and talked to me. And I just wasn't ready to listen. And this time I was. And they, yeah, it's the saying, a closed mouth don't get fed, right? I had to open my mouth to get what I wanted and what I needed. And I was able to get this help. And again, I looked so much of my life. I'm like, I'm the one who changed. I'm the one who made the decision. But in really looking back, I was forced into this decision, right? Meaning it was either I continue what I'm doing and feeling like crap and being completely alone, or I try a new way of life where I can meet new people and have real relationships and change. So although, sure, I took the obvious choice, so much of what I have today isn't my doing.
Gotcha.
It really isn't.
Right.
And I think there's some beauty in that, right? So around that time, something I knew that I wanted to do was public speaking. So I'm going into my senior year of high school, and so I broke my back end of April. I'm back in high school for the start of my senior year. The school is working with me. I have a little bit of I think I'm in school from like 9 to 2 or 9:30 to 2, something like that. So I have a little bit of a modified schedule. Again, sitting for a full school, even sitting for 5 hours at that time is like, I'm going home and I'm sleeping from 2:00 till the next day, basically. Like I'm giving it everything I possibly can. And again, I just want it to be around people. So I start public speaking solely on the idea of, hey, I don't want people to go through the shit I went through. And at this time, I think I was still drinking and getting high. It was every once in a while, I really struggled to be like, I'm going to stop completely. But again, the less and less people wanted to hang out with me if I was going to be doing that.
Yeah.
So we get to...
I think it's, I'm sorry. Well, I think it's kind of interesting that we went from socially awkward kid is so shy to now outspoken and ready to be a public speaker. Like that transformation from your childhood to, well, the end of your childhood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty.
Yeah. And again, I think that I just wanted recognition, right? And that was a way. I couldn't get recognition by being the crazy person anymore.
Right.
It wasn't really that, and not killing myself weren't possible.
Right.
Right. So I think that public speaking was a way for me to be recognized and feel good about myself and tell myself that, hey, I can prevent other people from going through what I'm going through.
Right.
And I got really lucky, right? People struggle to find meaning in life. And that gave me meaning. It really did.
Right.
And around that time too, I realized, hey, like I'd love to be a drug and alcohol counselor, right? I can speak, I can do drug and alcohol counseling. That's what I'm gonna put my life at. Mm-hmm. So I finished my senior year in high school, and I graduated, which was, I'm certainly glad that happened.
On time.
On time.
Yeah, you went through a lot. Still graduated on time.
I graduated on time with my class. And that whole year I was bouncing in and out of being sober. So it was kind of like a little bit of a juggle. Like I would be sober for a couple months, and then I would go back to doing it for a little bit. And it was kind of this back and forth. Right. Or it would have been the end of maybe like March or April of my senior year is when I really jumped 2 feet in and said, I'm having way more fun sober than I am getting high, right? Like I'm actually hanging out with really cool people who are my age, who are also sober and building really cool lives for themselves. And it was this amazing experience. At first it wasn't. At first I'd be hanging out with them and be like, dude, this is so boring. But then they would be having fun. Then I would be pretending to have fun, not really truly having fun, but like pretending. And then slowly, like I remember, I think it was coming up on my year anniversary of breaking my back, and we all went skydiving, and it was awesome. It was like this, I started doing this shit that I would dream of. Actually, the year anniversary, I broke my back. So it would have been April 21st, 2012. I went to a Red Sox Yankee game. And it was the first Red Sox Yankee game I ever went to. So I started having these experiences.
That's your first time ever?
Seeing a Red Sox Yankee.
Oh,
So I went up to Fenway. Someone, that a close family friend gave us these tickets literally on the field, in July after I broke my back. So that was like this huge ordeal. My dad was awesome, and he brought me up. He got a hotel. Like it was a great experience.
Yes, I bet, yeah.
And so, but I started being able to do these things and actually remember them and have these incredible experiences sober. And it was contagious. And I wanted that to be my mission. And it gave me true meaning and purpose. And it gave me true acceptance, where I knew that whether I was in a wheelchair, whether you liked what was in my pocket or not, you were my brother. You were going to be there for me. You weren't going to leave me. I felt truly accepted for literally the first time in my life. I had glimpses of it, but it was always fake, right? It would never be truly that. But I'm talking, I had people in my life that I could and would call 2-3 in the morning, and they would be by my side. And it was special.
Right.
So I graduate high school, and I hadn't taken the SAT or anything like that. Going to any traditional college was out of the question. My grades were not good. It wasn't going to happen. But Gateway Community College, they had the drug and alcohol recovery counseling program. So
shout outs to Gateway Community
it.
College alumni. Continue.
So I went to Gateway, and for the first time in my life, I learned what it was like to be a student. I didn't do anything in high school. I didn't know how to write. I really didn't know how to do anything. When I was young, I was diagnosed with dyslexia, so I struggled to read and spell and things like that naturally. And I'm sure that probably played a role in my lack of self-esteem and things like that, just comparing myself to other first graders who were reading fluently, and here I am struggling to get through a paragraph.
Right.
But that's kind of besides the point. So, I learned how to be a student for the first time, and I did really well. The following year, I did my first internship and had my first experience in the field working in methadone maintenance. And it was an incredible opportunity, being 18, 19 years old and being able to get a taste of what I wanted my life to be. So I did really, really well. I got some awards, which was cool. I was being recognized for the first time since playing soccer early on for my accomplishments. And that gave me the motivation to keep working, right? Had I been putting in all the work I was doing and didn't get recognized, I don't know what that would have done.
Right.
But I finally was putting myself in a place where I could be recognized for that work, and it felt really good, and I wanted more. Just like getting high felt really good, and I wanted more. I wanted more of this.
And being you for the first time.
Right.
Right.
And I wouldn't even say I was me for the first time yet. I really don't think I was. I think I was getting there, and I was getting more comfortable being me. But there was certainly an image I wanted to project, right? I wanted to project this idea that here I am, an 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid who is in a wheelchair, and he's crushing life. And I'm sure there was moments on the inside where I was not crushing life, but I wasn't ready for the world to see that.
I got you. I definitely got you.
I was dipping my toes in the water per se, right? Even though I couldn't feel them, I was still dipping them in. That's it. So as I'm going further and further, I graduate Gateway. I start up at Southern. Things are continuing to progress. I start working at the Columbus House. So I'm going to school at Southern, working at the Columbus House, doing an internship at another place, and my life is starting to get really busy. And when I look back at school, the thing I think I learned the most was how to manage my time
Yep.
and how to do things I didn't want to do.
Yes.
And those were massive skills.
And also, because you told me this before as well, starting something and finishing it.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right. For most people, that first long-term goal is high school, right? For me, that wasn't really that special
Yep, same
because
here.
it wasn't, I didn't really want it.
Right.
But school, that was when I really wanted to invest in it, that meant something totally different.
Right.
So I started learning how to do things that I didn't want to do. And that was, to this day, the best skill I have. The best skill I have is that I can do the things I don't want to do. And I'm super grateful for that. And another thing that was going on around this same time is I was having, so it would have been around this same time I started having pretty severe health problems. And I would get these abscesses and I would have to go in and do surgery. I think the first time was winter 2014, I want to say. That was really, really challenging. Here I was, finally my life is feeling like I'm flowing, right? I have really meaningful relationships. I'm engaged in school and doing incredibly well. I have all these job opportunities. I feel like I'm growing in my profession, and now I'm in the hospital. And that, I wish I could say, hey, they got in and took care of it. That was not at all what happened. This was a reoccurring thing for, I think I had maybe 14 or 15 surgeries in about 2 years.
Wow.
And each time I learned that I can do so much more than my brain tells me. And that was another gift where I would put these limitations on me and be like, oh, you had surgery, you're going to be tied up for a week. And I would end up getting out of the hospital and I'd be back working within a day or two. And again, I'm not saying that is smart by any means, but I talked with my doctors and they said pain tolerance, you can do it's not going to make it worse. So immediately I would be getting back, and I learned that I'm capable of doing things way beyond what I thought I was. And that, again, gave me a lot of this, just more confidence.
Right.
So I graduated from Southern, and I didn't know if I wanted to go to school to do my graduate degree in social work, or if I wanted to do, it was a PsyD program at the time, which is kind of like a PhD in clinical psychology, a little less research oriented and more clinical oriented.
Gotcha.
So I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I applied to a bunch of schools and I got rejected from every single PsyD program. And as I should have, right? Yeah, I had to take the graduate record exams. I think that's what they're called, the GREs. And I just didn't study and did, as you would expect, absolutely terrible. And it was like, okay, decision's made for me. I'm going to go get my MSW. So I went to Fordham, and again, I really learned how to show up, manage my time, realize that, hey, I might be feeling crazy anxiety and all these really uncomfortable feelings, but if I keep doing what's in my control and breaking it down to a day at a time, I'm going to get through this.
Yeah.
And I did. So at that time, I was working full-time in a bunch of high schools as a subcontracted drug and alcohol counselor. Yeah. And I was doing an internship with another agency in New Haven. So I was working in Colchester, East Lyme, New Haven. Those were like my three places. And then I was going up to Westchester, New York every Saturday for classes. And I remember, man, I'd be driving and I'd be sitting at red lights just laughing to myself. Not like, no, if I'm coming, if I'm going, and just laughing.
Yeah, I remember. See, we're at this point, for our audience, we're friends at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we're close friends at this point. And I mean, before you started Fordham, we would hang out. Once you went to Fordham, you were so locked in. I would probably see you like once a month. I would talk to you.
Yeah.
But you were just you were locked in. You were busy.
Yeah, there was no real extra time in my life.
Right.
And I also learned the importance of sleep around that time, right? Realizing, I probably went maybe a month averaging maybe 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. And I remember just being like, I'm going to snap. This is not sustainable.
Right.
This is not sustainable. And fortunately, there was a defined endpoint, and I knew, hey, I can make it through this stretch of time, and I will be okay. And I was.
Yeah.
And from there, unfortunately, the health problems that year in particular were probably the worst.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. I had this one. I was in the hospital. Ended up getting the flu. So this was 2016 or 17, something like that. I was at a AFC championship game up in Foxborough, and I ended up getting the flu. And
17.
And then the next day, or a few days later, I ended up getting one of those abscesses back.
Yeah.
And I was I had like 104 fever for multiple days. It wasn't going down. It would go down a little bit when I took Tylenol. My doctor's like, you need to go to the hospital. And that's when they found the abscess on top of that. And I got out of the hospital. I was in the hospital for about a week, maybe a little over, because I missed multiple days of class. And I think I was only allowed to miss 2 at the time. And my teacher was like, every other one was cool with them. They understood my situation. I was still doing all the work. I wasn't missing anything. And this one teacher's like, nope, you have to think about retaking this class at a later point. Mind you, this is the second semester of my last year. Like I would have to, you're telling me I'm going to have to go back in the fall to do a whole nother year to graduate when I'm done. And why can't you give me? So I remember I showed up, I was all doped up, and I showed up and I sat in that class the day I got out of the hospital, literally not able to sit up. And I probably was a little rude, not like outwardly, but like I wanted my teacher to kind of feel bad. It was totally a selfish thing to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was hard. And I wanted to, I had this vision of finishing my schooling in a 6-year time period, and I didn't want it to be longer than it had to be.
Yeah.
And I found a way to make that happen.
Is this fair to say that at this point, because I know you mentioned this new talent or new gift of pushing past your limits, it sounds like you took that manipulation that you were doing and started manipulating yourself to do incredible things. Like,
and I like that you said that, because that is in a sense of what I do. Whether it's real or perceived, it works.
Right.
So, for example, when getting the second COVID shot, right? I remember calling you and kind of telling you this story, but it was like the idea. I had a full day the next day. And I remember waking up at like 1 a.m, hurting in places I didn't know I could hurt, puddle of sweat, took my temperature. It was like pushing 103. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going into the office today. And a few minutes later, I just start laughing. And it wasn't this idea of, I don't know what it stemmed from, the idea of, hey, I've never had this experience before. I have never worked feeling this crappy. And again, with the COVID shot, I knew, hey, it comes on 12 hours after you get it, and it only lasts for 24 hours, and you're good, right? So, and it was really just achy body, feeling the cold. So I knew I could still work or at least see individuals online that day. And I did it, and I think I probably called you multiple times, bitching and complaining, but I made it through. And I also, just to throw that out, I was very transparent with people that if they didn't want to meet because I was in this situation, I wouldn't do it. So there was nothing unethical going on.
Right.
But it was just this cool opportunity to prove to myself that I could make it through a really shitty experience, or what I perceived as a shitty experience, and be okay. And that day, at the end of the day, like, there's very few times I feel more satisfied and more accomplished and more just happy with myself when I'm able to create this new reference point in my life. Right. That now, the next time, so the other day after recording with you, actually, I was done, and it was the next day was really, really hard, but I had this reference point to fall back and be like, hey, I've been in way worse shape and made it through the day. Right. So I think that was incredibly important. So it would have been when I was still at Southern, I got really interested. So I had spent so much time in self-help programs and so much time in just trying to understand addiction. And when I really looked at what I was doing, I was just kind of going back to my public speaking, right? I was sharing my story with the world thinking, oh, if people hear my story, they're going to not do the things I do, which is crazy. And what I realized I was doing is I was basically doing what the DARE programs were doing back in the 80s, which is quite literally the most ineffective, and there's an argument that it's actually damaging to the way we talk about drugs and alcohol.
Say no to drugs.
Right. Just say no.
Dare bear.
Right. And I realized that without knowing, I was doing the same thing. So what I began doing was trying to understand the truth about drugs in society. And that took me in some really interesting places. And that started to kind of be my meaning and purpose at that time, was really specializing in substance abuse and trying to do advocacy for policy changes. So that was a big part of my life too at that time. And then in addition, starting Winning Ways, that was another piece that really took a back seat when I did my when I went to graduate school.
Yeah.
And then has
rightfully so
resurfaced. So yeah, Fordham was a really great experience. I was fortunate in that I had this cohort from Southern that all went to Fordham, so we all carpooled up together and built some really meaningful relationships.
Nice.
And so I graduated, and you were one of the people there, which was a special moment, man. I think it was just my family and you. So
no, it was your family, which includes me.
That's right. That's
you hear
right.
me?
Oh, I hear you. I hear you.
I thought you were like I still think, but at that moment, you're like my hero, bro. I swear to God, because like to see, like, not only did you just kill it, graduate Fordham, but you had your Gronk jersey on, with your sunglasses on. You're the coolest guy up there, bro.
I don't know about that, but I definitely I felt good not having the cap. Or I think I had the cap and gown on, but I think I had my
No, you had it open.
Open.
With the Gronk jersey on.
Yeah.
It was fire.
Yeah, it was fire. I got absolutely destroyed by that sun. I was peeling for like a week after. It was like 100 degrees on the I don't know if it was turf or whatever, but I got fried.
No, it was I think I wore like a suit or something stupid like that, and I took that right off.
Yeah. So I graduate Fordham, and I started working full time for the organization I had. I was already working at after I graduated Southern, and I took over the director of school-based counseling there, which was again just such a great experience. And in that job, I can't speak enough about. And I think something that really comes to my mind is mentorship. I had such an incredible mentor who was the executive director of the program. And I learned so much, and how to truly connect and truly be effective at my job. And then with this director, I started getting far more kind of administrative opportunities that I was then able to, again, apply in these different areas of my life. So I kept gaining these new skills that I didn't really think of as skills at the time.
I'll tell you one thing. One thing that we study in Nichiren Buddhism is the importance of the relationship between mentee and mentor, and how essentially we play both roles from day one to day last, right? And I think it's real powerful. You pointed out how important that was, but at the same time, you're working with kids, so clearly you're a mentor to kids while being mentored. So I think it's just that's very important for everyone listening, like, to really, that mentorship, mentor-mentee relationship is very valuable.
Yeah, and it really helped me. It helped me hone a lot of skills. And when we talk about becoming genuine with myself, that was one of the things that going through supervision, as well as enhancing my professional skills, it also really helped me grow and develop as a person,
right,
into to something that I can say is I'm very and have been very detached from my emotions. And it's something that I am always working on, meaning it certainly is a survival thing, right? And I think I'm really grateful in many ways that I was attached from my emotions while I was kind of going through this experience, because I think if I got too consumed by them, I might have given up.
Right. Right.
And that was something that helped me, is how do I be a human, right? And how do I take my experience and be able to process that at the same time as working with other people, and it not using that work as my therapy, right? That is not at all what I'm saying, but being able to acknowledge me as myself.
Right.
So that was another thing that really came from that part of my life. And in 2019, I believe, April 2019, I decided, hey, I really want to start my own practice. And that was it was interesting in that I had no idea what I was doing. I know people in the therapeutic world have their own practices, but in terms of starting it, in terms of getting paneled with health insurance, in terms of doing all these things, I had no idea what I was doing. So I reached out to some people, I did a lot of research, and I kind of went and took this leap of faith. And again, I was so fortunate in that I just had my parents supported everything I did. And they funded me to be able to take this journey. And I ran with it, and it was really slow at first. And there was so much, I was just so uncomfortable. Like, what am I going to do? Am I just going to have this office space that I'm spending money on every month? Have like one client, like, how is this going to work? And slowly it did. And now I'm, again, learning how to manage working full time, starting this practice, and all these other areas of my life. And that was a really a great experience for me.
Wow. So, so now where are we at?
So now we're at probably a couple years back. So around 2009, summer 2019, something like that. Yeah.
So it's December 2019. You take the leap of faith.
Yep.
And start your own practice.
Yeah, it was that spring.
That spring?
Yep.
Okay. So now you're starting your own practice. Like, how did that work in terms of success, failure?
Yeah. So I never looked at it as success or failure. I just
Okay.
looked at it as, how can I do what's in my control?
Okay.
Right. And the people in my life, which is a common theme, right? I have really great people in my life. But they were not supportive of how I was doing it. Meaning, I didn't do any marketing. I just didn't really have the time to throw everything at this. And they were like, you need to do more. And I was like, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And slowly, word of mouth, getting referrals, this started to build up. And I look back at people in my life, and I had this conversation not long ago. They're like, yeah, I really didn't think it was going to work. And the whole time I'm there, I never thought it wasn't going to work. Right.
That's important.
Yeah, and that's
You
how,
believed.
And again, there's so many amazing people in this world, right? That do just incredible things. And when I look at what separates them, it's just that they do what's in their control a day at a time, and they keep doing what's in their control a day at a time, and eventually they get where they're trying to go.
Right.
And if they don't get where they're trying to go, another door opens and they get where they're trying to go.
Right.
No
plan B.
And that, when I look back at things in my life, it's, hey, that saying, showing up 90% of it. That is so true, right? I show up, and the rest, if I identify what's in my control, I'm going to make it happen one way. It might not be in my time frame, but it's going to happen, or at least to this point in my life, it has happened.
Right.
And is that easy? No. Is it a vulnerable spot? Absolutely. Is it painful at times? Sure. Right. But that's where the growth happens. And again, I think the most important thing is, now I have reference points moving forward, right? I have specific times that I can look back and say, I felt this way, I did these things, and this happened. And that is replicable. I can apply that to almost any area of my life. So as I journeyed into this practice, I kind of found what I'll call my wellness plan. So because I was kind of attached from my emotions, because I was so work oriented, I was neglecting all these other areas of my life. My diet was atrocious. I ate whatever I wanted. Sleep patterns weren't really a thing. Exercise, I don't even know what that is at this point, right? I haven't done that in forever. And I'm kind of going through life just I'm feeling good, but I'm not feeling good. I don't know what I don't know. So I started to try, I would have these really good days and then I'd have these bad days and I didn't know really what the difference was, right? So I started really journaling and writing out what day to day looked like. Wake up at this time, go to work at this time, do this, this, and this. And something that was really, really challenging for me is working in schools, right? And working in schools that were about an hour commute and being paralyzed. I have this morning routine I often do. I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning every day and then finishing my days at 9, 10 at night because I'm seeing clients in my practice. And I was just getting really, really burnt out. And it got to a point where I was in working half the time for myself. I was making more money than working full time at my job. And leaving that job, which I transitioned full time to my private practice in the summer of 2019. So I'm sorry, I started my practice in 2018, April 2018. And I transitioned full time to my practice August 2019.
Gotcha.
And that is when this reflection started to come into place, where all of a sudden I'm able to kind of have life more on my terms. I have more control of when I can go to sleep and when I can wake up. I can plan. And that's when I kind of had the space to really say, hey, I want to optimize my life. And I had this time to exercise, right? Because I'm not caught up from 6 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night and totally pushing that off the back burner, pretending that doesn't exist. And through exercise, I realized how much more energy I had, how I was essentially giving myself this oil change for the first time in years. And I looked at my diet. I looked at my sleep regimen where, I get 8.5 hours of sleep every single night. And that, it might sound like a lot, but that is where I'm at my optimal level.
Right.
And I'm able to function right, sure, if I were to get 6 hours of sleep, maybe I have 2 more hours of the day where I can do more. And I love when Jeff Bezos talks about sleep, where he talks about, hey, I always get 8 hours. And sure, I could cut that down to 4 and have, instead of having 12 working hours a day, I can have 16 working hours a day. But if I'm making more decisions that are shittier because I have less sleep and less cognitive ability, what's the point? I'd rather make fewer quality decisions than more shitty decisions.
Right.
And that is very much was big for me to hear because that makes sense.
Yeah.
And around that time as well, and actually something I was able to pick up from working at my old job was the importance of breathing and how breathing quite literally can regulate our central nervous system. And it's the difference between tapping into the parasympathetic nervous system, which regulates kind of the calming process in us versus the sympathetic, which is our fight or flight response. So I practiced these conscious breathing techniques where I would set reminders on my phone for every hour that just said breathe. And I would take 2 minutes an hour and consciously breathe. And then that 2 minutes became 5 minutes. And then that hour became every 30 minutes. And then that 30 minutes became every 15 minutes. And now it is very deeply ingrained in me to have conscious breath. And what that started to do was create these awareness points in my life where I was truly able to be as aware as possible. And what that did was it created all this extra choice in my life. And I had these choices that I didn't have before, and those choices ended up being better choices.
Right.
So I was really able to directly see that the actions I take from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep correlate to how I feel. And it was no more guesswork, right? I wasn't a broken clock anymore. And I like that idea that a broken clock is right twice a day. I don't want to be right for the sake of being right. I want to be right because I know the exact things that went into me being right.
Right.
Because I can repeat that.
Right.
And what I find when I do those things is life happens. And, it doesn't mean that I'm immune to negative things happen to me. Unfortunately, I just had a surgery a month ago. Like I don't want to say health issues, but I'm certainly more prone to them. And that stinks. That throws my world upside down every time that happens.
Right.
But I'm able to continue to do the things that keep me well. And that doesn't mean those times in my life don't suck, but it means that I'm able to get through them and hopefully be able to really experience them for what they are so I can use them as reference points moving forward.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Which is huge, right? And what I learned through this process and why I consider myself very much a behavioral therapist is that it is the behavior that changes the way we think. It's the behavior, the specific actions we do that change the way we feel.
Right.
And life in many ways can be a formula, right? And that, again, I don't want to make it sound simple because it's not simple. In life on life's terms, things happen that throw everything for a loop. But what I found is when I do the things in my control on my wellness plan, I end up getting through it. And I get through it in a way that is more intentional than lucky.
Right. Right. Well, I think it is simple in terms of you want to lose weight, you need to exercise and eat well. So it's simple of what you have to do, but putting the work in is the hard part.
And
you know?
That's where I go back to learning how to do things I don't want to do. And the easiest way to do that, honestly, is just accountability, right? I have people in my life that if I don't, I'll keep simple, I'll go on that. If I don't exercise, if I don't eat healthy, I can't get away with that anymore.
Right.
Right? There's
Right.
other people attached to that. And there's other people that call me on that when I don't. I can't do so many of the things I want to do, and I can't get out of the things that maybe I want to get out of, but that I have people that are dependent and relying on me.
Right.
And by those people, I'm talking about my network.
Yeah,
right?
no doubt. No doubt.
So,
No doubt.
yeah, like accountability that's what makes it so I have to do the things I don't want to do.
Yeah, plus Jess is not having that.
No,
She's calling you.
nope.
Shout out to my sis, Jessica. But you know but I'm a part of that network, and I have clear transparency, and you ain't lying.
Right.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
get called out, and rightfully so. You know, people care.
100%.
People care.
And learning how to not take that as criticism and take that as feedback. There's a quote, and I'm drawing a blank on who said it, but it's, I don't want to be wrong longer than I have to be. And that I take so seriously in my life. And I'm not attached. There's times where I get very attached to my opinions, and I work really a lot for that not to happen because, again, if someone presents me with an idea that makes more sense, I want to have that flexibility to be able to take that on.
Right.
And I can't think of how many times I've done that in just crazy conversations we have where I'm so stuck on this one thing, and then you make this point, and I'm like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what? Scratch everything I just said, and
Yeah.
let's roll with that.
Yeah, you're so much better than me at that. Oh my God, I'm terrible. You're very, and you're right, because I'm thinking sports, like when sports
big one.
arguments. Yeah, oh yeah, and yeah, you're from when we met to now. Yeah, you're so much more flexible, and that's strength, you know. And I think that's knowing who you are to be able to do that, you know. Yeah, that's powerful, man.
It makes life easier, right? It really does.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, at this point, just to kind of bring everyone up to speed, what my life looks like day to day, right, is starting this nonprofit, which we've been able to work with and help a lot of individuals who have been struggling with incarceration, substance abuse. And it's been a pretty incredible experience. And then working full-time at my practice and with my parents' practice, Frankenberger Associates, which is a learning solution center that helps individuals struggling with learning needs and learning disabilities and helping them gain skills and knowledge, as well as parents to help them be the best learners that they can be.
Right.
And it has been a wildly rewarding process, right? And I think of myself as I get this profession, which gets viewed as maybe selfless, where you're helping others, but really it's just so selfish because I've learned so much from having, I get to have, many conversations with really interesting people every single day.
Right.
And I get to see in real time how behaviors dictate how we feel, and behaviors dictate whether we fall up or fall down.
Right.
And it's pretty special. So I'm certainly, I'm a lucky guy. I'm lucky to be here. I'm lucky to have this conversation. And again, I'm excited to continue to have these conversations with our guests on this podcast and really hear how they're able to overcome adversity and make the world a better place, right? We're all I think the last thing I'll end on this is we forget that we're all on the same team, right? When you win, I win. When anyone out there, when I see people doing great things, that gets me high, right? That is so fun to see. And I have so many people in my life that are doing brilliant things right now, and nothing makes me happier. And it's this us against them mindset. We all lose with that. But when we're all realize how incredible we are and we all play a role in making this world work, we all play a role, right? From the smallest thing to the people, looking out for meteors hitting the earth and ending civilization. Like, we all play a role.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
So that's my story.
Well, Ben, just to add on, homeowner, business owner, philanthropist, role model, soon to be married, you know what I mean? Amazing couple. I love y'all, you know that. And it's just so, thank you for sharing. I'm looking forward to this ride too. And yeah, man, it's just, you're an awesome person, and you're literally the definition of falling up. You know what I mean? You took a accident that is it safe to say the majority of people pass from that?
No, I think maybe with my specific injury, where just like most people when they break their spine, it's like still connected or it's a partial break, and mine was pretty much like they had to hang me up on a rack to straighten my spine out. So I think that is one, but it's not a fun injury.
Right.
And it's easy. It certainly is it can be easy to give up.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Like, I know we both are, the type to be like, nah, you're the man. No, you're the man. You know that. But I really I don't know if I could ever do what you've done. Going through what you've gone through, and to be, yes, amazing person in terms of the things you do in the community and this and that, but you're happy. Like, you're happy. And I think, we live to be happy. That's the first thing. And to see, your growth from the shy child, that was socially awkward at the time, to this man now that's happy, living his best life with like you said, amazing people around you doing incredible things, and you ain't lying. I know incredible things, and it's just it's really an example in why this podcast is so special, and we got to share this to the world, because if you can do it, then there's no excuse for any of us out here.
And the truth is, humans are resilient, and that's what makes us so beautiful, right?
That's right.
You say, hey, I don't know what would happen, and I hope we never, ever, ever, ever find that out.
Right.
But there's one thing we're good at, and that's overcoming. And it takes the village, right? It takes everyone. I didn't do that. If there's one thing I want to get out, like, so much of this was not my choice, right? So much of this was freely given to me in many, many ways. And I'm certainly grateful to be on this ride with you. So you know how much I appreciate you. Yeah. And thanks everybody for tuning in.
All right. Falling Up Podcast.